You are watching an Cloud Plus Training as a Service video snippet. Snippets are concise, targeted tutorials explaining how to use, configure, integrate, deploy, and support Oracle's Fusion Cloud applications. Snippets are delivered via FAST, the Fusion Application Support Tool. FAST is accessible via the web at www.oracloud.plus. No more watching hours of learning path style videos to get to the 5-minute snippet you need. Learn Oracle's Fusion Cloud applications in minutes, not hours. Hello, and welcome to the Procurement Framework video presentation. This video is intended for beginners looking to learn more about Oracle's Fusion Cloud applications. It explains Cloud Plus's or OCP's Procurement Framework. This is the tool that lets us list the FPC Fusion Procurement Cloud transactions, their sequence, and their purpose, or what we'll call features and scope. This video snippet, as with all video snippets, can be found within FAST, OCP's Fusion Application Support Tool. Within FAST, it can be found in the Procurement Cloud Training group and the Intro to Procurement Cloud Training Center under the Learn menu option. If you don't have access to FAST, you can request it by emailing your name and your contact information to access@oracloud.plus. Key topics for this presentation are as follows: the request train stop, enable, source, contract, agree, catalog, order, and the receive train stops. So let's get started. So here's the procurement framework. As you can see, the different train stops list the different mix of transactions across the top, with one large or long review and report train stop or activity underneath. This lists the transactions possible within FPC in train stop form. Next, it details the features and scope for each transaction, as you'll see. So first, the requesting transaction. As you can see here, features and scope, it details catalog requests, also known as self-service, non-catalog requests, also known as full service, and change requests. Each of the different flavors, if you will, can be found underneath the heading. Next up, it walks through or discusses enablement. So enablement really refers to three things: suppliers, non-financial contracts, so think of non-disclosure agreements or contracts, joint venture, these types of contracts, as well as pre-purchase contracts. So master professional services, master service, master hosting, master end user license. These are all buyer-supplier contracts that occur before or govern the SOW contracts that result later as a result of a specific purchase, as opposed to being one contract which governs the entire grouping or relationship between those buyer and supplier. So next is source, or the source transaction. So here you can see that the different flavors or features and scope would be requests for information, or RFIs, where we're reaching out to a supplier to gain information, usually pre-bid, and it's because we know very little or how to price or how to compare. Those RFIs typically, like 90% or greater of the time, will result in what's called an RFP, where the buying organization or procurement organization will seek to ask a supplier to propose how, not as in how much, as in what is supposed to be done and how much, meaning that there's a lack of understanding or a desire by the procuring entity to have the supplier perform everything. So that's RFIs, RFPs, then obviously a request for quote. Usually when we know what, or how rather, we just want to know how much, then we can use an RFQ. And then lastly, auction, which is where you're buying usually commodities, but using time as an enemy of the supplier, or to put pressure on the supplier to get to the lowest price. So that's the source transaction or train stop. Next, contract. So you can see here under features and scope, you can author purchase contracts, so whether they're goods contracts or services contracts. You can also import those same contracts. You can do amendments, renewals, deliverable, which are the compliance tasks associated with authoring contracts. And then you may use something like a digital signature as well. So these are all features in scope under the contract train stop or task. Now, if you'll draw your attention to the left, we highlighted the user statuses example because this is something that's really nice within Fusion Procurement Cloud that allows us to sub-assign micro statuses, if you will, between when a contract is first authored or drafted and when it's signed or active, or if you want to say approved. And then not only can you add sub statuses, you can assign them with users in those different organizations. And then you can also manage the workload as to which contracts are in which state. So user statuses is also called out here because it's a nice, it is nice functionality. Next, agreements. So if you have contracts, one of the ways that you can enforce different parameters, maxes, etc. on the contract, or auto source, meaning auto generate POs, etc., is that you can use an agreement. Within Fusion, there's largely two different kinds of agreements, blankets and contracts. And so we've got both listed here in a little bit of detail. Next, catalog. Catalog's an interesting word because it really is a term that can encompass lots of different constructs, if you will, used to represent pre-negotiated content. So yes, catalogs, local and punch out are the two obvious ones, are certainly noted, but there's lots of different variants of those or variations of those catalogs and constructs. So for example, informational catalog is not a catalog anywhere. It's simply a pointer to another system or another document or another URL web page to display something or to direct you. For example, we may have an agreement with Hertz and we wouldn't requisition that, but we want to put within the general search taxonomy some item that will point you to the Amazon reservation portal. And so, again, a lot of the best practices, one of which is called federated or single search or Amazonian simple search, where you want to uniformly direct users to type in the one thing they all know, which is the description, and move from there. So that's the informational catalog. Local is catalog items that are in Fusion, remote or punch out, catalog items that are somewhere else on the vendor. Then you have smart forms, also found within the cataloging tile or function of Fusion. But smart forms are a little bit different. They could be used to capture additional data on a non-catalog request, or even initiate a subsystem like market data or facilities. So they wouldn't actually create the transaction, but they'd be used with a zero cost purchasing line type to just initiate an activity occurring somewhere else or in a different application. For more about that, you might want to take a look at the requisition algorithm process flow that's talked about in the process flows and quick start guide video presentation. Keeping with this, there's information template requests, which is more of just additional or ancillary information that gets captured with the requisition line. Then you have content zones as a way to secure or broadcast different content constructs, aka catalogs, to different users. And then lastly, purchasing news, which is a uniform way to broadcast banners, etc., to requesters. So that's the catalog train stopper task. Obviously, purchase order, self-service, full service, change orders. And then lastly, receipts, my receipts, which is more of a desktop receipts or doc receipts. And then as well, some variation of receipt accrual, depending on how your business rules or the organizational business rules related to a specific deployment. Okay, so are you ready for the next video? Well, do you understand all the transactions within FPC that we talked about earlier, meaning Fusion Procurement Cloud? You understand the order that they're created in and what each one does? If the answer is no, then either watch again or feel free to reach out to me directly. You can see here on the left, that's my email address, and I'm always available to answer questions. If the answer is yes, great, then maybe you want to watch more video. So you can go to our playlist out on YouTube by going to YouTube and searching on OraCloud Plus Inc. Or you can go from our website to the tool we call FAST, the Fusion Application Support Tool, and you can access the full catalog of our Learn, Use, Configure, Integrate, Deploy, and Support videos online. So that's it for this tutorial. We hope you found it informative, and keep watching.